I'm 40 years old. Spent a long time studying history and, by extension, human nature. I like to understand the how and the why of historical events, especially the more outlandish and wild stages of our species. It's easy to look back and wonder, what were they thinking? I like to dig a little deeper, try to answer those questions specifically. I think it's very relevant to current events because in spite of our imagined progress, human nature really hasn't changed at all. That's why history is so important. It teaches us our mistakes, sure. It also teaches us about ourselves as a species. They are lessons that can be learned, and the wisdom can be applied to current affairs. So with that in mind, why do we have rules? As in limits, boundaries, constraints. There are many specific reasons to have rules depending on the action that is being limited, but I mean the question very generally. Rules have two main purposes: helping humans navigate a natural world with physical constraints and helping humans navigate the decision tree of good versus evil, right versus wrong. The old saying, and I'm sure you've heard it before, hopefully, we have rules for a reason. Rules are usually made as a result of someone making a bad decision at some point and paying for it. The reasons are not always immediately recognizable. Example, a fork in a light socket. You look at a fork. Is it dangerous? Sorta. You could stab a person or an animal with it, and that would be bad. Beyond that, you could stab a tree all day. You could attempt to murder a slab of concrete with it for as long as you want. You're not doing anything harmful or illegal. Look at an electrical outlet. It's probably in a wall, mated to the base, and just looks like a plastic slot inside of a sheet of drywall. Forget what you know about how it works and just look at it as an object from the outside. Does it look dangerous? It's a small plastic slit in a wall. It's about as dangerous as a tree or a slab of concrete. So why not put the fork in it? The fork actually kind of fits. So why do we have a rule against that? Maybe because it has been tried before and it never ends well. Never. You're probably wondering why I'm making such a big deal over something so basic, right? The answer is because that's where we are, and I have to. I have to say these things because the majority of the fat, lazy, entitled, racist, naive, sexual degenerates, also known as leftists, seem to have never learned a lot of the basics. I'm hoping that repetition might help inject a little bit of reality into the woke mob, but that's probably a pipe dream. I think we both know that. There's another side of rules, though. Too many rules. Rules can be abused just like everything else. This is a very delicate balance for humans to maintain. Rules are supposed to be helpful. They aid us and those that come after us to not make the mistakes that others have made in the past. A good rule may seem constraining, but in order to be a good rule, it has to be one that you will be happy that you followed later. A bad rule is dishonest. It is needlessly constraining and doesn't serve the person following the rule so much as it serves another person, agenda, or motive. How do humans tell the difference between good and bad rules? I would suggest that it's the same reason that our species has survived for as long as it has. Instinct. When you see someone take an action, you form an immediate opinion. Whether you consciously realize that you're doing it or not, you still do it. That's a first reaction. A balanced adult who is objective and self-aware will have a more balanced reaction to stimuli. Our feelings do affect our instincts, but a balanced person will be able to manage those feelings and react with more precision, often helping to enact an appropriate response. That person can be said to have good instincts, as in their instincts are honed and they're closer to baseline. An unbalanced person will not be able to manage their emotions, and in some cases, their emotions completely override the instinctual reaction, often causing a bad outcome. Their instincts are not honed, and more often than not, do not favor survival. We have another word to describe people like this. They are the weak. Children are a good example of this. They simply haven't had the time to hone their instincts and learn how to manage their emotions. Their reactions are very often inappropriate. It is something that has to be taught and learned. That takes time. This is something that our ancestors learned long ago. One must learn to survive. Even animals know this because the parents instinctually protect their young. This is a universal cross-species truth. So what happens when the young are never taught to hone their instincts? That's not a hard question to answer. I present to you the modern left. I say left, not liberal. There is a massive difference, and I don't know when the divergence happened, but despite what you think, there is a big difference between leftists and liberals. That's a whole other separate discussion for another time, though. In spite of most of them, the left, never learning to hone their instincts, instincts can still be very powerful, as they have an innate quality to them. As you get older and wiser, your instincts will sharpen, whether you consciously aspire to that or not. So it takes effort to dull them. You have to actively lie to yourself in order to suppress your instincts. You must subvert your own perception of reality to conform with this lie that you are telling yourself. The more you do this, the easier it gets, until it becomes second nature. Unfortunately, humans do have a massive capacity for self-deception. How many times have you had an immediate response to an action taken, only to have someone tell you that you were wrong, whether it be something you're responding to or something that you're seeing someone else respond to? Might you really be wrong? Of course. We can all be wrong at any given time. How do we tell if we really are wrong? Being honest with ourselves. How do we tell if the person telling us we are wrong is right? Direct your instincts at them. Forget your momentary anger about being corrected or told that you are wrong, because we will all feel that flash of annoyance or anger when somebody does try to correct us from time to time. But remember, finely honed instincts are separate from emotions. Do your instincts reveal a genuine concern on their part, or simply a need to conform or change you? If you are sensing the latter, then you've probably heard the words, "well, actually," at the beginning of a sentence somewhere in there. I call this the "well, actually" crowd. There are other buzzwords now: context, nuance, lived experience. You get the idea. Those are often gray traps. They're meant to have you question your own understanding of right and wrong, dragging you into the weeds. These arguments often attempt to dull your instincts and heighten your emotional state, thereby changing your reactions to a non-optimal response. Example: someone commits cold-blooded murder. Your first reaction is to punish the murderer appropriately, also known as eliminating them from existence. What is the argument against that? Well, actually, they had a troubled childhood. Well, actually, they were never given a chance. Well, actually, you can't know what it's like to be them, etc., etc. Where do you go from there? Trying to quantify those things puts you into a gray area, and it only gets harder and harder from there to navigate. Often, the only way out is to give ground and go back on what you had originally thought. Your first reaction, your instinctual reaction. This doesn't mean that you should always think you are right. Developing and honing one's instincts can take a lifetime. As you get older, though, if you are a well-balanced adult, you will have a noticeable edge, one that you can rely on more and more. This is the wisdom granted by a lifetime of knowledge and experience, the wisdom of age. This same wisdom also generates a type of impatience with those that refuse to learn. The impatience is not without warrant. After all, it has taken effort and sacrifice to hone your own instincts, only to have someone who has done none of those things to look you in the eye and tell you that they know better. In children, it can be a little irritating, but they're children. It's expected. They simply have not had the time to mature. When the children refuse to mature, then we got a problem. How big of a problem? Remember what I said at the beginning about how instincts govern our ability to survive as a species? Yeah, it's that kind of problem.